All right. Welcome back to the podcast, The Intentional Creator. Today we are going to be speaking about, is clickbait good for creativity? I'm joined by the wonderful Jackson. How's it going? Welcome back to the podcast.
What's up? Happy to be here as always.
I think we should do like a nickname every single podcast. That would be fun.
Okay.
So this one, you're the wonderful Jackson. I'll be the devious Dean. I don't know.
The grounded Dean. I saw that video of you up on the cliff the other day. I was like, dang, he's looking grounded.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, from my hiking video. Yeah, I actually just posted another reel of still drone shots, which I'm
that's the one
playing with this. Yeah, I'm playing with this idea of still drone shots because, like, even just with the trend of FPV lately, or like I guess in the past couple of years, it's always been about this like super intense, like almost action movie, it's like speed racing drone footage.
It's cool. It's a lot.
It's cool, but it's a lot. I think it just plays into that whole like short attention span kind of thing with the internet. So I've been trying to like subvert that recently and being like, what does still drone shots look like? I feel like I never see anyone doing still drone shots. So I mean, I've just been playing with still shots in general on my videos, and I've been enjoying it a lot. Just almost treating it more as like a photograph, and then like moving within the photograph.
I was thinking of like, you just have a really crazy big tripod.
Imagine
like a 50-foot tripod,
like those selfie sticks that you can just extend up to the sky. Like some people walk around with that.
100%.
I mean, that would be cool with like, I mean, I've seen people do that with like 360 cameras and then just have a giant selfie stick. So it looks like a drone. And like at that point, just use a drone.
Right.
I don't know.
Exactly.
But I guess it's meant to be for in places where you can't use a drone. So I guess that works.
Yep. Time and place for everything, huh?
Yeah. Anyway, I guess back onto the topic. Enough about drones. Is clickbait good for creativity? So we kind of stumbled upon this question. We actually literally just like came up with this thought today because this is something that we are going through in our own creative journey, literally on this podcast right now. So the last episode was titled if you're a creator, make content about this. And we kind of had a feel, Jackson pointed out, that it like kind of felt a little bit clickbaity, which is kind of against the point of this podcast, which is being intentional about our creativity, about the titles, about the content, about everything involved in the process.
Right.
And so that begs the question, is clickbait good for creativity? And it's difficult because I think in this social landscape where everyone is trying to grab people's attention, there's so much going on. I think it's the worst on YouTube just because that is the place where you actually like see titles. Like you don't see titles on Instagram or TikTok. It's just the content's forced in your face already. So I guess this would be like more centered around YouTube and possibly podcasting, or maybe even like blog posts and articles as well could apply.
Anywhere words apply. I feel like slipping into the everything's clickbait.
I just feel like
ads.
It's just it's very much marketing over creativity. I think.
Right. I
think that's the question, and that's actually the theme of this whole podcast is like, how do you balance marketing and creativity?
Yeah, which one do you actually have your feet in fully?
Yeah.
Are you just marketing, or you just create, or are you actually have an engagement with the creative process?
It's difficult because you almost can't be one without the other. You need both. I mean, I guess you can be a complete marketer or complete creative, but I don't think you're going to find the same success if you are able to balance them.
Yeah.
So if you're a pure creative, a pure artist that doesn't care about marketing at all, no one's going to see your work. No one's going to care. I mean, not that people won't care, but you might have your family are the only people that see it. And so there's no growth, there's no sustainability, there's no longevity in that. If you're trying to make it a career, if you're not trying to make anything of it, then by all means, just be creative and post the title, this is how I did my art, or like whatever. Whereas if you are trying to grow, then I think it is very important to have some level of
relationship
clickbaitiness, some level of look at me, look at my thing.
Or I would even say maybe like some level of just developing curiosity, right? Because clickbait at the end of the day, I feel like is just there for grabbing people's curiosity, right? They give this statement of just like, check me out. Yeah. And there's like this like urge of like, ooh, what's that? Let me go look, you know? And so there's a curiosity thing. And I think that...
Could you argue, sorry to cut you off
Please.
Here, could you argue that clickbait is deception though, or not? Like, where's the line between good clickbait and deceptive, quote unquote, bad clickbait?
Yeah. Well, I think that's definitely the question that we're in now, in the sense of like, we're going to be asking in the sense of how do we use clickbait, quote unquote, for labeling, you know, our podcasts and our personal things and our whatever. And then, where's that line of like deceptivity around it? And I think it's just a razor's edge. It's so like right down the middle, in the sense of like, it's such a close, fine line. I think that, it really stems back again from at the end of the day, where are you coming from with your creative process? Like, so for example, for our podcast and for the engagement that I think would pull people in, is just like, let's just ask the questions we're asking in the podcast. Like, just the question is the title. What is it? Is clickbait good for creativity? That's the title right there. In the sense of like, it's really clickbaity, quote unquote. Like it's got a question, it's got curiosity.
I feel like questions are inherently curious. Well, obviously it's a question, so it has to be curious.
Right.
It's like the question infers that the podcast holds the answer,
right?
Or the piece of content holds the answer. So I guess in a way it is clickbait. I don't know. I'm like,
well, I think it's like that. That goes beyond social media. Obviously, at that point, it's just words and how we communicate. You're just asking a question, and there's the answer. And I think that's the cool thing about what we're trying to figure out, is like the intentional creative is like somebody who's really just trying to stay centered in their creative process and their curiosity of the creative process, and like how that creative process is happening within themselves. And so just asking a question is just kind of, I feel like, brings it back to a very natural, grounded state of just like, I'm just curious. Like, I'm just curious about this question. I'm trying to answer it. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to sell you on anything necessarily. If you want to get involved in the conversation, please come on in. But there's no like need for you to come. I don't know. I think that's the line of the deceptiveness of clickbait, in the sense of like, are you doing it for the view, or are you doing it for the conversation? Are you doing it for the view, or you know, the analytics, or are you doing it for the attention grab? You know, and like, I know back in the day, I was definitely creating content for attention grabbing. So like, I would go do things specifically because I knew people would be interested and engaged in that thing that I was doing, and they would grab at it, and I was grabbing at it before they grabbed at it, so that everybody else would grab at it. And I think that like, that's the cliff. That's like an edge that is so easy to fall into, that the internet itself is falling into constantly. And I think, again, I really just try to come back to like, where am I creating from now? You know, back in the day, there was that attention need. Yeah. Now it's
I think the thing of like, again, we spoke about it in the last episode, like having that neediness energy, where it's like, I guess even the last title, even though it wasn't like extreme clickbait at all. If we use our podcast as an example, like, if you're a creator, then make content about this. That's almost like,
which is great. Like, it definitely.
It's like, hey, watch us, listen to us, like, consume this content. Whereas if it was, what do I make content about? Then it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm not begging for attention. We're not begging for attention, but it does still have this curiosity about it.
Sure. Which is like, and there's a part of that too that I recognize and I feel, in the sense of like, there's probably going to be maybe less clicks on it. You know, there's probably going to be a little bit less, like, you've really got to be, because really what it's doing is like, the audience has to be really engaged in yourself about what you're looking for. So if you're just scrolling, and if you're just doing your thing online, and if you don't really know what you're doing on it, which is all of us a lot of the time, sure, right? Me, hello. I've got to be better about it. But you know, if I don't know what I'm looking for, I'll just scroll through, and if it doesn't like call that deeper part of myself that has these curious questions within it, And if I can't hear it, I'll just scroll right by and won't listen to it. But again, I think it's like, you know, less of an attack on the attention and more of a respectful, like, you're in your own, you know, you have your own relationship to whatever you're doing with your time. I respect that.
Yeah.
If you want to have this conversation, if you want to be engaged in some way in what we're talking about, please come on over.
Yeah, well, I think that comes back to, again, our intention with this podcast, with our own content, is what are we trying to do here? Are we trying to go viral? Are we trying to market ourselves and grow to 1 million listeners in a year? Like, that would be cool, but I don't think that's necessarily the intention. I think at the base level, the intention is to help people create more consciously and more intentionally. And so the numbers don't really matter. So our titling, our content, everything should be a reflection of our goal, of our why, of the initial intention. And so even just by the titles, it's like, okay, what's your intention with that? And who are you trying to attract to watch your or listen to your content? It's like, are you trying to attract people that have that intentional mindset already?
Right.
We're looking, that are going to pay attention and be there. So actually, I have a example of this. So there's a guy that I used to watch probably like 2 years ago called Hamza on YouTube. I don't know if you've seen him or heard of him.
I don't think so.
But he's kind of in like the men's health space, and he grew pretty big on YouTube pretty quickly, and like scaled up his team and really became like a marketing giant for his YouTube channel, like one of the quickest growing YouTube channels around. I think he got like, I don't know, 1 million subs in like 7 or 8 months or something crazy, and like doing crazy views on his channel as well, but like all mostly super good, super helpful videos. And he started off just by doing these like very long guides where he would talk to men like very directly, very informally, just like literally recording with a camera in front of his face, kind of how we've spoken about, and it would be like half an hour and a half videos where he would just speak and like give his opinion, his experience, his advice. And those videos did really well, but after a certain while and he wanted to start growing the channel, he realized that if he wanted to reach the audience that he was trying to reach, he needed to make the more short form, more clickbaity content. Yeah. Because the people that really needed to hear those things were the people that weren't in that intentional mindset. So it's like, how do you balance that? So he then went like all out on like super clickbaity kind of stuff, which I didn't like. I didn't really watch that kind of stuff just because it wasn't the vibe. It felt very marketing and like clickbaity and like, these are the 10 things you got to do today. And then he kind of stopped because that burnt him out so much, and he was like, wait, this is actually not what I want to do. Like, this doesn't align with who I am. But it did help him grow a lot and attract that audience that he wanted to communicate with. So it's a really weird, difficult balance, because like, even for us, the people that are so unintentional, unconscious about social media creation and consumption aren't going to be the ones listening to this. Right. So, and I think
at least for me, that was amazing. I really appreciated all those shares, and I was hearing a lot of that. And I think that's definitely the battle with being online, is that it's short form content design, right? Our attention span is shortening as a human species. Like, our attention span is just continuing to shorten, and so that's the marketable way of growth. If you want to grow, typically you got to do short form content, unless you're speaking some real Da Vinci bars like constantly.
Honestly, like, you just have to. And so I think, again, for me, the point of the intentional creativity part of it is the fact that I'm really trying to bring myself back to myself. Why am I doing it, right? And then not even about the podcast, not even about you, not even about any of it. It's just like, what am I creating? What do I feel excited about? What do I feel I want to create? What do I want to let out of my system? Because for me, that's the seed, that's the nugget. Like, if that like, that's what I'm so protective over, in the sense of like keeping my boundaries around it and keeping my like mind, using my mind to protect that
creative juice in my system and not letting it get tarnished by all the things that the internet asks us to do and use our creativity for and like sell our creativity to. And so I think that it's, yeah, exactly. Like there's not going to be as an easy pathway to growth necessarily. There's not going to be as an easy pathway towards, you know, whatever you're looking for online, right? If you come to the internet looking for some sort of like thing, for views, money, financial, you know, expression, wanting attention, whatever, the intentional creative process is not going to be that answer necessarily. But I think the more and more of us are finding that, and more of us are asking like why we are creative in the first place. What are we actually wanting to speak out? What are we actually speaking to? And again, it brings us back to what's inside of us, what wants to be let out from within us. And I think that please go ahead.
I also think there is a growing trend towards this intentional creativity, obviously, because we're having these conversations, people are listening to this podcast, and there's mass amounts of other content on the internet also speaking about this kind of stuff. But I guess kind of bringing it back to the titling a little bit more, and like, I feel like there's an anti-clickbait kind of trend going on as well, and like anti-editing, anti-curatedness content.
You just want it raw.
Yeah, like, so even on YouTube, like, I've been noticing videos of people, again, just setting up the camera, just speaking, just doing their thing, and having the most unclickbaity titles ever, but that itself is clickbaity, just because it's simple, and it's, like, actually real. It's like, and actually in that one video in the playlist you made, so Jackson made a playlist all about intentional creativity on YouTube, which is linked in the description of this episode in the link tree, so go check that out. Some really great videos. But there was the one guy that was speaking about how like everything is content nowadays. And anyways, he made an example of somebody on YouTube that cleans cow hooves.
Right.
And like just has the camera on, and like that's all of his videos, but it'll be like the title is just like cleaning cow hooves day 42, and I was like, that's the title, and it's getting hundreds of thousands of views.
That's it.
And like obviously that content is interesting and different and weird, so that's, and you learn,
it's learning. You're not seeing
but he's not like, check out this crazy cow hoof cleaning technique or something weird like that. It's just simple, it's just honest, it's just true. And I think more and more people are gravitating towards that. Even just in my own videos recently, I've started to think about my titles a bit more. And so yesterday I went out and filmed a video on how to make pine needle tea, and I made it long form as well. It's like 25 minutes, so I'm really experimenting with more of the long form content as well, and more simple, like just still cameras. I didn't even use music in my last video, but because I really just want to like, again, make it as real and raw as possible, of like having people there in that moment with me, and I'm doing my thing. But just with the titling, I just called it, I was like, making pine needle tea, a great source of vitamin C and A in winter. And like, that's the title. And so it's not like 10 tips how to make pine needle tea. I'm like, I'm not even really making it about the viewer. I'm saying like, it's me, like this is my process of making it. You can watch if you want to. And I'm just like,
this is what I'm doing. It's really creation. It's like there's this documentation happening. It's not necessarily you're creating, for sure. You are creating. The whole thing is creation, but you're also just like documenting the process that you're in your life. I'm just like, right now I'm making teas, bro. Like I'm making this tea is dope. You all should try it. Like here's the fucking video. And like that's the coolest thing about, I think that's a really fun way to like to enjoy and step into the creative process. Again, it's coming from yourself, but it's also still service. You're offering and you're giving out this like, hey, like here's a cool tea. Like if you're interested in tea, like this is a cool new one that maybe you haven't tried yet. But it's also just your process, what you're up to in your life, where you're at in your life, you know, the season that you're in, the winter, right? And I think that the more, and again, we're at this tipping point, it's already happening in society. Like we are so oversaturated with information and content. Everything's so oversaturated, and that's why people are so tired of the clickbait stuff. That's why this question is even relevant. That's why people are just like, whoa, like I'm so done with like falsities. Like
I also think that's why people are gravitating towards more long form.
Watching cow hooves, bro.
Yeah. Long form, still raw, unedited, real, honest videos. It's because just everything, even just like if you're watching TV and ads come on, like ads are so annoying and terrible. It's like, go away. It just doesn't help the whole thing. And so by having these raw, still real moments, it's real.
It's finding some groundedness
as opposed to everything else.
Constant stimulation of everything.
Yeah.
And I guess to answer the question, no, clickbait's not good for creativity. I think that curiosity is good for creativity, and maybe that we could flip those two words of like, let's just remind ourselves that the clickbait is actually just curiosity. We're just trying to be curious, and when it's coming from an authentic place, you know, this is a curious title, this is a curious video, this is a curious creation we're making, right? We're not doing it from a clickbaity internet sensational place, but at the root, biologically, like what's happening is the fact that there's attention. Like I'm interested in this thing that's happening on this video because I'm curious about it, and so maybe the curiosity is good for creativity.
So what do you say to creatives that are trying to grow and like make something out of it?
I think that's an interesting balance. I think again, then this is like some real judo flipping at that point, where you take it back on its head in the sense of like the intentional creative. If he's intentionally trying to grow, which is kind of like a little bit where I'm at right now, he may need to use clickbait. He may need to go down that rabbit hole, like Homie, you were saying, did. What's his channel? What?
Oh, Hamza,
yeah,
that guy.
Like he did it. He went. You know, he grew. He did the thing, and he grew his channel. And maybe that's needed for a little bit of time.
Yeah.
But doing it from a grounded place, and I think audiences will be able to sense that out. Like if you're doing it from a place of just like, oh my gosh, like you're just selling yourself. Like this is
you're just cranking out on the system.
Or hey, I know. I'm using some techniques that you know is kind of annoying, but you can tell when you watch my content, you know how this feels or whatever. In the sense of our podcast, there really is a truth that we're coming from, and there's still this offering that's coming through us of just like there's still that intentional space within me as the creative. I'm still coming from a really grounded place within myself. And then run it. Use your clickbait all you want. Grow it. Get those numbers up, baby.
I think it's kind of a balancing scale almost. Because
and that too.
When you're starting out, if you're a painter, for example, and you're making videos painting on YouTube, kind of like I think we mentioned in one of the last episodes, where when you're starting out and you're making videos about yourself and not necessarily providing value, people aren't going to care about you. People aren't going to click on it because they don't know you. They don't know your story.
Right.
So in the beginning, you almost need to weigh marketing heavier than creativity. Like weigh on the clickbaity.
Again, if you're trying to grow.
If you're trying to grow, yes. If that's your intention and that's what you want to be doing with your creativity, your career, then if you have that intention to grow, you can weigh on the marketing side of it more. And as you start to gain followers, gain numbers, say you get to 10K, 20K, 50K, whatever, you can start tipping the scale back up towards more of your own creativity, more raw, real, unclickbaity titles, because your audience is already established. They know who you are, and they are willing to watch your videos no matter what you title it, no matter what you put as a thumbnail. But that takes time, and so it is a very difficult balance. There's no right answer as to when to do that or how to do that. I think it's just having these discussions to create awareness around it,
right? Because
no one's spoken about this stuff before,
right? Well, we haven't had to deal with this kind of conversation before, and I think that again, the whole process of producing and putting stuff out online is a very introspective one, and the more you can remind yourself that and take yourself to that space of like, this is teaching me about me. This is teaching me about me. What am I learning about myself when I'm putting stuff out online? am I learning about? My need for, all these different elements and emotional elements that come up in the process of creating online. And again, where are you rooted in? Where is that creativity coming from? Why is that creativity alive in you? What is it doing for you? What are you giving out to your audience or the world?
And then
those questions will keep you grounded in the process.
Yeah, it comes back to the question of like, first of all, should you be a content creator? Why do you want to be? Because I think a lot of people see what's happening and they see how quote unquote easy it is to be a content creator, and how everyone wants to do it, but it's like, okay, why are you doing it? Are you doing it because you can get free stuff and get like money and fame and
you don't want
authority?
That attention if you don't have something you're rooted in. You don't want that attention. Like, as much as it may sound nice and be glamorous, like if you're not grounded and rooted in who you are, it's going to burn you out. It's what we see in celebrities all the time, where they burn out and they go crazy. Things go off the rails. Like, like people lose their minds because it's actually not who they are. And
then they're trapped into this life that they don't actually want to be in. With
all this crazy, access to things that it will just begin to feel like a burden. I feel like,
Yeah, and you're doing things that you don't want to do, creating things you don't want to create.
Right.
So
it's not fun. It's not a good time.
No, I mean, again, even just bringing it back to my story of like doing the Lightroom tutorials, and I kind of got pigeonholed into that.
Right.
And I felt like I was stuck there and I couldn't make anything else. Well, I did try to make other things, but people didn't watch them. People didn't care. And so you're trapped in this one niche, this one thing. And if you don't care about it at your core, it's not going to last. It's not going to be sustainable.
No. And it's not going to feed you. It's not going to feed your relationships. It's not going to feed the communities that you're in. It's not going to feed your friendships. Like, you're just going to feel torn in between it all. And so, reminding yourself why you're doing it and really digging into that question first and foremost is so important and so needed. And then don't rush it. Like, that's something that I'm really sitting with right now of like, okay, I actually feel like I know why I'm a photographer now. I actually feel like I know why I create content now. I actually feel like I know what stories I want to share now.
Me too.
But I no longer have this desire to like, I need 1 million subscribers tomorrow, right? Like, there's just this like, oh, like, I just need to live my life. It'll happen when it needs to. Whatever will happen will happen. Like, I'm not looking at some number as like some idol, and like that's motivating to me. I'm just doing relationship stuff with myself. Like, how can I be more grounded in my emotions and taking care of my energy and taking care of myself and like living in a balanced place and not be so distracted by the shininess.
And attached.
I don't want to be distracted by all the shininess of attention or fame or numbers or stats. What's my creative process? What do I have to offer? What do I have to share? Let's develop that and just sit there and let it take its time. Yeah.
So what is your thoughts on people that are going the very clickbaity marketing route? Almost, I want to say someone like Mr. Beast, for example.
Mr. Like, I'm sure
Beast, bro. You know him. Like, he is just taking it to the next level. And I actually don't have anything against him. It seems like he's a great guy. I don't watch his content, but from what I have seen of him, it seems like he is very authentic and rooted in his truth of what he's doing. He's not trying to be someone else or something different, and that's exactly why he succeeded the way he did. But he is playing into this whole game.
I think it's great. Like, I think it's good for him. I think it's awesome. I think he does have a good heart. I think he's got a good intentions. Like, I don't feel any bad juju off him. Like, I don't think he's running around doing some crazy stuff behind the scenes. I just think it sucks for him too, a little bit. I'm like, dang, now you're playing that role.
Yeah,
you're playing that.
But but he made that role though,
which is dope. 100%.
That's his thing. So
but
he's
it's like
playing him.
It's 100%. But in the sense of like, it's a lot easier for you and I to evolve and change if we need to, without that attention. Yeah. If however many millions of people are ready for the next piece of content that's going to be the same kind of idea or the same kind of form of like product production, and you and I want to change or grow and do something different with our lives, like that's going to be a lot more difficult of an emotional process to do, you know, in that position versus where we're at now. Granted, I don't think that, like, if that's your vibe, if you don't want to change, if you don't want to grow anywhere, like, run it. Like, Mr. Beast is chilling and he's happy and he's like feeling fulfilled in all the different places. I just know, you know, humans like to grow. We like to move. We like to change. We like to shift. And so,
I also think it depends how you, again, when you start your creative journey, your channel, your Instagram page, whatever it is, it starts with your intention. And like, if his intention was to build a multi-trillion-dollar business,
which it does,
then
feel
that's like what he needs to do, and he has to keep doing.
Yeah.
But his intention, his goal is to run a business, not a creative expression of art.
Right.
I mean, it can be some, obviously creativity is involved, but it's not like his personal journey.
Right. Well, and the other thing too that I've really started to recognize within myself, it's like, okay, that's a part of you. That's a part of him. And maybe that part of him can just run it. And that's like a great way to make money for him. That's a great way to help support the people around him. But maybe on the side, and I know on the side, he's running business. He's doing other things. He's developing other realms and other avenues of yada yada yada. Like he's not just that person, which is cool. And so like this is kind of gets you into kind of humans are multifaceted. We're so multifaceted in like our expressions. We want to do all sorts of different things and be in all sorts of different vibes.
But what's interesting is that algorithms don't like that. They like a niche. No. They're like someone that's marketable, or even just companies like wanting to sponsor people. Like if you're posting something different every single week, they can be like, well, how am I meant to like? Oh, okay.
But I want to say to that point though that we're bigger than the algorithm.
Yes,
we are bigger than the algorithm, and meaning in the sense like if money's hard. I mean, money is something that we all have to operate out of. No matter where you are in the world, no matter how you're running, we got to make money. So if you find a way you can be making money online, like say Mr. Beast is literally not even stoked about the content he's creating, and I don't think he's not, but he's just doing it to do it. He's doing it to make some money. He's doing it to pay his rent. He's making more than that, but I'm just saying, like in a sense, like we all got to do these things to help us survive. Like dope. Like if you find a channel where you can just create some sort of content, put it out, and that just covers your bases, that's amazing. And run it. Like don't feel like you got to change that in any sort of way. Just remember that that's not all of who you are. Develop these other parts of you, and develop these other elements of you. And try to change. Maybe if you want to change, like let yourself be shown in more ways you need to. But just playing off that point of like, well, if clickbait's working for you, why is this conversation relevant? That's why I'm playing this kind of devil's advocate in that place of like, you know, if it's working for you and you're paying your bills and you're not doing any debaucherous things like Mr. Beast is doing, bet, like run it.
Also, if you're enjoying it,
exactly.
Guess, but is that good for the world though? To have even more clickbaity,
and that's that is a bigger question that I don't like necessarily have a better answer to. Because if that's the question, if that's how we're angling the question, then no, I don't think he should be doing what he's doing necessarily. I don't think it's helpful. Granted, I think he uses his money in like a nice way, and you know that's cool. But there's got to be other ways he could be like promoting and producing content.
I mean, I think it's difficult because I think if he didn't do it, somebody else would do it.
Right.
So
and it's dope that he's a good dude, not an evil guy.
There's always going to be people that aren't conscious of what they're doing, of what they're creating, and there's businesses out there that are going to make money, and that's their intention.
Maybe there's parts of him that are conscious of what he's doing, and he's consciously putting that money into good use. And so at that point, it's
I'm sure he has. Consciousness in terms of that point. But
it's really crazy how big this conversation is. The more we dig into this, the more I'm like, wow, this is such a big conversation. Like it
goes deep. I mean, it transcends social media.
100%. It gets beyond social media so quick.
Yeah.
We're talking about the species at this point, and like how we're interacting with this medium of connection, which is social media.
Yeah.
And like how
it's something that our species has never had to deal with, and so that's what we're doing right now. That's what we're talking about.
We're talking about
we don't have any framework of how to deal with this thing. And I think our whole society, our whole species, has just kind of fallen into this medium of communication and consumption so quickly. Like, if you think about it, it's been 20 years that all of this has happened, and our brains are like, what is going on? Like, how do we deal with this? And I think that's also a large reason why there's so much more anxiety and depression and mental health illness. It's because we don't know how to deal with this. And so
that's why this podcast, and that's why we brought it up, but like that's why humans, that's why we are talking about it now as a species, and like it is coming up more into people's consciousness. I know a lot of my creative friends who are engaged in this kind of way of conversating about it, like, whoa, how do we do this like in a way that's respectful of the planet? How do we do this? How do we create in a respectful way for our way of life? Like, how do we create in a respectful way for our communities and our engagement with the communities and ourselves? Like,
I think there's a lot of people our age that are starting to have these conversations now, where they've been in the social media game for 5 to 10 years, and they're realizing that the old ways, the clickbaity ways, are not sustainable and not healthy for the consumer and the creator.
Right.
And those that are, there's almost like two sides of it. So people that are starting right now, which are falling into the traps that we did when we started, and trying to grow and build quickly because of all the other social media content out there telling them they can get 1 million followers in 2 days.
It's so shiny.
But they'll try it and do it for a year or two. Most people probably won't even stick around that long trying to be a creative, because I think we
also
had a conversation before this podcast started, but like, we know that we're going to be a part of this for the rest of our lives. Like, content isn't going anywhere, and
we'll be creating.
We're in it still because we actually are really passionate about it, and we believe that it has importance and value, and we're not here for some trend. We're here to like.
It's a language. We're all speaking a language with the social media world, and we have to learn how to speak it in a healthy way. Just like in any situation in life, there's a grounded, balanced way to go about something, and there's a debaucherous, ungrounded, addicted way to go about something. And like, how can we go about this in a more healthy engagement? How can we engage with it in a way that's supportive to the being, not the algorithm?
I like that. Supportive to the being, not the algorithm. There's another t-shirt.
I was gonna say, ooh, maybe.
Do we have anything more to say about clickbait? Or I guess, what have we settled on for
the answer?
How to name our own podcast? Just have the questions, like you said.
I think obviously, like with everything, it'll be situational. Maybe we'll have a good idea of how to label it. Maybe we'll have a good, and I think that's intentional, something to point out. Like, let things happen and let that creative flow happen in the present moment. Don't just like lock in. I don't think we should just lock in on like every single podcast is a question. But if we have that kind of as an intentional place of just like, the question is a great place to start in the title. I think that's a great way to like just have a center around it, and then we can kind of, whenever good ideas come through or different ideas come through, we can shift or pivot or do something different or do something new.
I think it's also, it's difficult because the questions can be so specific in some instances. Like, for example, our second episode was how to approach social media if you're not a visual artist, and one of our listeners, Kamari, I don't know if you're listening right now, but if you are, hi,
hello,
Kamari.
How you doing, girl? Sorry.
That's the Jackson shout out. We got to get like buttons or something. Like sound effects. That'd be fun. Anyway, she said that even in that episode where the title is how to approach social media if you're not a visual artist, she is a visual artist to some extent, and she said that there were things in there that still applied to her, but she said if she didn't know me, if she didn't know us, then she wouldn't have listened to that episode.
Right. So So the questions could turn people off because it's like, that's not a question I'm asking.
Exactly.
Interesting. That's good to think about too.
So that's difficult to navigate as well.
Then let's do this. Let's have we'll have a question, and then we'll have massive clickbait. I'm kidding.
Is clickbait good for creativity?
You won't want to miss
video
this,
or you will die.
Can you imagine? That's so funny. Actually, that'd be such a funny, ironic thing to do.
We should actually do that just for this episode.
Just for this episode, that would be really funny. Let's do it.
Yeah. Okay, so then we got to think about the clickbaity part of what this episode is.
Yeah. I like that. You won't want to miss this.
10 hacks for hacking your creative clickbait.
10 hacks for better clickbait. Yeah. Oh man. 10 hacks. 10 hacks for 10,000 views. 10 clickbait. Yeah. Clickbait downloads for 1 million followers.
We'll get it. We'll work on it.
We'll find some sort of. We don't even know how to clickbait.
No, we don't. We're not very good at that. Otherwise, we'd probably have 1 million listeners already.
Yeah, right. We would
in 3 weeks. But I don't think we're doing too bad. I think we are on 11 listeners right now. Oh no, we have 21 plays. Our audience size is 9, and we have 9 Spotify followers. That's pretty good.
Let's go.
And
what's
3
up,
episodes.
guys? Thanks for listening. We're so happy you're here. Share, comment.
Subscribe, follow, rate, do all the things. Yeah, I mean, I feel like we're pretty good wrapped up on this episode. I feel like we spoke about everything. We don't need to make it longer.
If you're listening to this, if you got any comments or questions, DM us. Send us an email. Send us a
I figured out the thing on Spotify where people can comment, leave questions on the Spotify episode. Wow. So
look how advanced
do that if you have any specific questions. That'll help us in knowing what you guys are having questions around as well.
It's a conversation.
And it will be cool to make this more interactive and more engaging. I made an Instagram account as well. It's just the Intentional Creator on Instagram as well, where you can follow along, and we'll post clips whenever we feel like it. We're not trying to make Instagram our main thing. But if you have any questions there, DM us. And
I feel good.
Follow Jackson on Instagram. Follow me. All the links are in the description and the link tree. And
Grounded Dean signing off.
What was yours again? I forgot what yours was.
I can't remember either. I was just thinking. It's what was mine? Enthusiastic? Was it mine? Enthusiastic?
Wonderful.
Jackson?
I think it was just Wonderful Jackson.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Wonderful Jackson signing off.
We'll sign
all right.
off for each
Have a good week, everyone. We'll speak to you next time.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.